Let's talk about what's happening in Sudan.
Sudan has been caught in a bloody war between the country's army and a militia.
إننا على ثقة في تجاوز هذه المحنة بالدربة والحكمة والقوة.
Well, to Sudan now, where the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces has taken control of Dinda city. The UN says more than 130,000 people have fled the southeast after attacks by the RSF. Mohammed Val sat down.
Nearly 2 years have passed since Sudan, once Africa's largest nation by landmass, descended into a devastating conflict. The Sudan Armed Forces, SAF, led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, commanded by General Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, known as Hemedti, have turned key cities into battlegrounds. This power struggle has forced over 12 million people to flee their homes, according to the United Nations, and resulted in countless deaths. The origins of this conflict trace back to a fractured alliance. Generals Burhan and Dagalo were once allies under President Omar al-Bashir, even collaborating to overthrow him in 2019. However, disagreements over the nation's direction and a proposed transition to civilian rule led to their rift. To integrate the 100,000-strong SF into the national army, and the question of who would command this unified force. Both generals appeared intent on preserving their power, wealth, and influence, unwilling to cede control. As the conflict rages, international attention has waned, overshadowed by crises in Ukraine, Gaza, and the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Despite diplomatic efforts, peace remains elusive. The RSF maintains control over several key cities, while government forces have recently reclaimed some territories. The capital, Khartoum, once celebrated as the triangular capital, now lies in ruins, a shadow of its former self. But who is fueling this war in a nation rich in resources like oil, gold, and iron ore? To understand, we must examine the external actors supporting the warring factions and their motivations, which often come at the expense of the Sudanese people. Countries such as Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Qatar, Algeria, Libya, the United Arab Emirates, UAE, Turkey, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Russia, China, Chad, and South Sudan have all played roles in this conflict. Sudan's African neighbors wield significant influence over the situation. To the east, Ethiopia and Eritrea silently support the RSF, which previously allied with Ethiopia against the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF. Conversely, the TPLF backs the SAF, adding another layer to the regional power dynamics. Egypt's support for the Sudanese army stems from historical ties, dating back to the British-Egyptian colonial era, when the Sudanese and Egyptian armies operated as a unified force. Additionally, Egypt's military leadership feels a kinship with Sudan's military rulers and is keen to suppress the Muslim Brotherhood's influence. The contentious Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which Egypt vehemently opposes, further complicates matters. To the west, Chad, sharing more than 20 ethnic groups with Sudan, has been accused of facilitating and delivering weapons to the RSF from the UAE through its eastern airports. Both nations have denied these allegations. However, Sudanese army leaders continue to publicly assert these claims, and independent reports, including those from the United Nations, have confirmed the flow of weapons from the UAE to the RSF. South Sudan, economically dependent on Sudan, has brokered agreements with both sides to ensure the uninterrupted flow of its oil exports, which traverse Sudanese territory and constitute about 90% of its national income. The country has also welcomed hundreds of thousands of Sudanese refugees fleeing the conflict, making it the third largest recipient after Chad and Egypt. Russia and Ukraine, despite their own conflict, paradoxically find themselves on the same side in Sudan. Both nations support the SAF diplomatically and militarily. Russia has a history of backing Sudan's regime at the UN Security Council, while Ukraine's support for the SAF stems from its opposition to the Wagner Group, a Russian paramilitary organization that has aided the RSF. Notably, Ukrainian and Russian fighters have been spotted in various parts of Sudan, including Omdurman and El Geneina. Turkey has reportedly offered its renowned Bayraktar drones to the government army, while Qatar also lends its support to the SAF. These nations are vying for influence in Sudan, seeking to assert themselves alongside regional powers like Saudi Arabia and the UAE. A victory for the SAF could provide Qatar with a valuable ally and opportunities for mining and agricultural projects, whereas an RSF triumph might jeopardize its relationship with Sudan. Iran, a former ally of Sudan, has rekindled its relationship with the SAF after a period of estrangement during al-Bashir's rule. Now Iran supports the regular army by supplying Muhajir-6 drones. Algeria has also extended support to the Sudanese army, offering fighter jets. The country aligns with the SAF partly because the UAE, a backer of the RSF, also supports Morocco, Algeria's regional rival. The involvement of these external actors has not only intensified the humanitarian crisis, but also complicated efforts to achieve a peaceful resolution. The SAF has refused to participate in talks mediated or supervised by the UAE, accusing it of supporting the RSF. The army has also filed complaints against the UAE and Chad at the UN Security Council and rejected African-led initiatives to end the war, alleging bias towards their adversaries. All negotiations have failed so far because different countries have different interests and agendas. The international community's role has been very weak. As of January 2025, the United States sanctioned both Generals Burhan and Dagalo, but these measures have yet to yield any impact. People in Sudan and the broader Middle East and Africa believe that the international community has totally ignored them and that the US has outsourced its foreign policy in the region to its allies, such as the UAE and Saudi Arabia, to deal with the urgent issues on their behalf.